British families desperately fleeing Rhodes after wildfires rage across the Greek island. Their holidays halted as flames got dangerously close to hotels.
I could actually see the flames coming over the hill. To me, it's, if you're seeing the flames and the smoke's blowing in your direction, there's only one thing you can do, and that's get out of there.
Many are still stuck at the airport waiting to get home as tour operators cancel holidays to the island. And in sport, it's a washout. Rain denies England's chance of winning back the Ashes.
This is ITV News with Kylie Pentelow.
Good evening. Tourists forced to flee as wildfires approach their hotels on the Greek island of Rhodes have described the horror as they escaped the flames. Some 19,000 people, including locals and holidaymakers, have so far been evacuated. From the island, our senior international correspondent John Irvine reports.
Replenishment at sea. One of the 10 firefighting aeroplanes battling the blazes here in Rhodes, refilling its water tank. But the charred landscape the aircraft is flying over is proof that the emergency services are yet to win the battle against wildfires that will soon be into their second week. What a tragic 24 hours it's been for residents forced to abandon their homes and belongings, only to watch as fire consumed much of what they hold dear. These pictures were taken from one of the boats that rescued around 3,000 tourists who waited on East Coast beaches for maritime salvation. The O'Donovan family from Leicester were saved by the boats. Today they were among the many Britons who'd had a traumatic night and were waiting at the island's one international airport hoping for a flight home. Tim O'Donovan took this camera phone footage from their hotel room as the wildfires approached. You can make out the flames that made up his mind about staying or leaving.
The smoke was outside the hotel. The point at which he phoned reception, I could actually see the flames coming over the hill, and they still hadn't told us to leave. And to me, it's, if you're seeing the flames and the smoke's blowing in your direction, there's only one thing you can do, and that's get out of there. And that's what we did.
I mean, there were still people in the pool when we left because there's no fire alarm. There was no fire alarm at the hotel that we could hear. And then we walked about 2 miles up the road in the heat.
With all your baggage?
With all, yeah. I must admit, the people along the way were really good. You know, if they got hoses, they were coming out at night, soaking us down and stuff.
Giving us fresh water too.
Eventually, the family found themselves on a beach waiting for a rescue boat from which Tim took this picture. Thank goodness for the Coast Guard vessels and the small boats that conducted the Dunkirk-style evacuation. Basically, the fire went as far as it could, and when you see the damage wrought here, you realise just how terrifying it must have been for the people trapped on beaches like this one, their backs to a wall of fire. What did you think it was like?
Scary, terrifying, and probably a bit, I don't know.
You don't know. You're tired though, aren't you? But it was really draining, really tiring, and I just want to go home, have a cup of tea and go to bed.
They faced an 18-hour wait for a flight to East Midlands that might leave in the early hours of tomorrow. John Irvine, ITV News, Rhodes.
Well, here several tour operators have made the decision to suspend flights to the holiday island. Instead, operating planes only for their customers desperately trying to get home. With the details, here's Joe Caution.
Landing back home from a holiday they'll remember for a lifetime, for all the wrong reasons. Hundreds of passengers arrived at Gatwick tonight on this flight from Rhodes, surely exhausted but relieved. This is why.
We have no information from EasyJet at this point. What is happening with your flight, and I do apologise.
Hundreds of passengers crowded the gates waiting for answers this morning, not knowing when they'll make it home. Some have been waiting here for over 20 hours.
It's actually terrible. You know, it's really tough, especially on the kids. They built up the excitement. You know, the holiday was great, and then this last hurdle has been an absolute nightmare. So it's just not the greatest of endings.
The UK's largest tour operators have cancelled dozens of flights to Rhodes, TUI until Wednesday, Jet2 for the whole of next week. But some airlines are continuing to operate as normal. 2 flights from Gatwick and 10 more across the UK are heading to Rhodes today, some of which will be empty in order to bring people back home. Travellers will be entitled to compensation, a full refund or change of destination if their holiday was cut short or cancelled over the next few days. For those who've booked to go to Rhodes over the next few weeks, though, it may not be as simple.
I think we really need to see what happens with the situation and how things go over the next few days. The immediate priority for travel companies right now will be supporting those customers who are still in destination.
Some holidaymakers had to leave their passports behind. Tonight, the Foreign Office has set up a help desk at the airport to help those without them to come home. Joe Caution, ITV News.
Well, earlier I spoke to John Irvine on Rhodes and asked him just how dramatic the situation was.
Yes, it was, Kylie, not least in terms of numbers. The authority here on Rhodes are saying last night's was the biggest evacuation in the island's history. 19,000 people evacuated out of harm's way. Just getting 3,000 off the beaches in darkness and with the flames bearing down is some achievement. We're not aware of any fatalities or serious injuries. So yes, the evacuation did go well. What's not going so well is bringing these fires under control, putting them out. They've been burning since Tuesday. They became truly dangerous yesterday afternoon with a big wind shift blowing the wildfires towards the tourist areas. I think it's reasonable for us to wonder if the Greeks have sufficient manpower and hardware to put the fires out. The weather isn't going to do them any favours. This is turning into the most prolonged heat wave in Greece's history. And of course that means the fire risk will remain high, unfortunately.
John Irvine there. In other news, Ukrainian officials say at least 1 person has been killed and 22 injured in a Russian missile strike on the southern city of Odessa. A World Heritage listed cathedral and a resident block were damaged in the attack. British band The 1975 has cancelled 2 tour dates in Asia after their set at a Malaysian music festival was halted by authorities after frontman Matt Healy made a pro-LGBT demonstration on stage. Performances in Jakarta and Taiwan will no longer go ahead this week. And it could be the end of the iconic Twitter blue bird, according to a tweet from the social media network's billionaire owner Elon Musk. It said that he will be replacing the logo, known as Larry the Bird, with an X. Now, finally, it wasn't Australia's play on the pitch that secured them the Ashes, but the near-endless rain that fell onto it. As England looked on, hoping for a break in the weather, the urn slipped from their grasp, as Mark McQuillan now reports.
After a pulsating series, a damp squib of an ending to the crucial 4th test. England's Ashes hopes washed away by the Manchester weather.
It's very, very wet.
Ultimately, this was the only action we saw. England's skills with the ball, not the type they were hoping to utilise at Old Trafford. The plans they'd made to take the remaining 5 Australian wickets they needed rendered irrelevant by the rain. Their hopes of levelling the series officially ended in the early evening.
This is a conversation that is expected. The match is over.
A frustrating day for the players and fans. Albeit Australia's will be soaking up their success tonight. They have retained the Ashes and will have the chance to win the series outright at the Oval next week. Mark McQuillan, ITV News.
And that's it. I'll be back with the late news at 10:10. Until then, enjoy your evening. Bye-bye.
First thing today will be lovely and warm, and by breakfast time, it could be on the sunny side. Heinz Tomato Ketchup, no added sugar and salt, sponsors ITV National Weather.
A very good evening to you. Today's rain sinking south in the next few hours. Brighter skies as we slide into a new week. Sunshine set to return together with blustery winds in places. Today's rain making slow progress southwards in the next few hours. Some locations have collected a month's worth of rain this weekend. No surprises there. And that rain moves its way into this sort of area as we go into the first stages of the new day. Behind this, clearer and cooler as temperatures slide. Brighter skies into a new week, if quite breezy around the coast, and temperatures on the low side given the time of year, particularly first thing. For the rest of us, a mild, muggy start to Monday, and the overnight rain meaning a soaking wet start to the morning as well. Some heavier downpours before things improve and that rain pulls away. And then brighter skies, a little more cheerful. Some blustery showers, mostly across the north and the east. Highs of 20 or 21 degrees through the afternoon.
Heinz Tomato Ketchup, no added sugar and salt, sponsors ITV National Weather.